What's good, folks? Welcome to another episode of the Cover One Film Room, the only show that gives you the hows and the whys behind both the good and the bad of the Buffalo Bills. I'm one of your two hosts, Anthony Prohaska, joined as always by Mr. Erik Turner. And Erik, I don't know what you like more, running back episodes or linebacker episodes, but here we are, a full running back episode, and talking about some OTA things that we've had this week as we are here live Wednesday, May 22nd. The Buffalo Bills having OTAs on the 20th and the 21st, but we sit here, Erik, about to embark on some OTA conversation and diving into some running back highlights for the Bills' fourth-round pick in this draft. One of them, Mr. Ray Davis from Kentucky. Should be a fun episode. It's beautiful outside. Spring is kind of turning into summer a little bit early. It's a good time. How you feeling, and what's going on?
Yeah, like you said, man, summer hours. So we're recording this a little early for you guys. Maybe some of you can listen to it on your way home and, watch it later on prior to Cover One Buffalo. Yeah, we're going to, talk running backs. And then, that's a tough one. I love linebacker film.
No.
And I would say linebacker still above running back just because running back, like having, played the position, there's a lot of just intuitiveness to it. It's kind of natural. Like there's only so many things you can work on. It just, you either got it, you don't. And so linebackers, I think is a little different when it comes to that. But either way, it's going to be fun. We have about 20 clips, some advanced stats. But as you said, let's lead off with some of our takeaways from OTAs.
Yeah, it's always nice to get some film from whether it's the team or different people that are at the practices. And again, it's tough to glean as much. I think we try as hard as we can to glean any drop of blood from those OTA stones, because we're just, and so many people are like craving for that content at this point of the year, right? Like you have the draft and then there's rookie mini camp and then OTAs are around the corner, and just to kind of get those first glimpses, those first looks, and then the interviews that come with them, like, which can be telling, even though there's some coach speak or player speak in them. But Erik, what's been your biggest takeaway from OTA so far? Is it a specific player? Was it an interview piece or something from the press conferences, little nugget, detail piece, something high level as we sit here kind of letting OTAs kind of settle in for us a bit?
Yeah, we scoured the film to see if we could find something. That's what we normally do. We'll grab a couple clips from the beat reporters and try to break down, maybe something that stood out. I'd say the only one that stood out recently was a clip of Keon Coleman. It might have been the first day.
Where he took 97 steps.
No, I don't want to go there. I don't want to start with that one. I want to start with the one where he's talking with Joe Brady, and Joe Brady's explaining splits and alignments and how that will affect the distribution. That was the only video that really kind of stood out positively, I should say, from practices so far. But I'd say like two things stood out from the press conferences that came out yesterday. So there was player conferences with Taron Johnson, MVS, and Sean McDermott, I believe. Those are only three.
Correct.
The one with Taron Johnson, which we don't really get to hear from him. And so hearing from him, because he can communicate and verbalize football really well. And he's so demonstrative when he does talk, and so matter of fact, when it comes to talking football. And I don't know if he slipped or if it was just him talking about Bobby Babich. And one, he gave him Babich a lot of props about how intelligent and how smart he was, pretty much calling him the smartest coach he's pretty much ever played for.
Literally, like verbatim, that's what that was my biggest. I was like, whoa, that's like heavy. That wasn't just like a throwaway line. That was genuine praise.
Right. And then he kind of said that this is like the position for Babich, calling the defense. And so again, we can read into that, and maybe it's just him. He meant to say that, he's designing the defense instead of calling the defense or calling the plays. Again, it's a wait and see approach with that, but maybe it was some kind of slip when it comes to that. Either way, I am excited for Babich. I am excited to see Taron Johnson and taking his leadership to the next level with all of the guys they lost in the secondary.
I thought that was some of the good questions that were directed towards him too, just like kind of the feel of this defense being different, like not turning around and seeing Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde and being the elder statesman in that secondary, and then getting that new contract and knowing he's going to be around for a little bit. We've talked about him for years. Aaron Quinn has talked about him for years. Like he's just such a good player, playing what I think a lot of people now are kind of going over to this side a little bit more, playing what is a premium position, like considering the passing nature of offenses, and then what is asked of a nickel or a slot corner in terms of the pass, but also against the run, especially the way the Bills use Taron Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was already a very important player for this defense. But then now with the departures of Trey White and Poyer and Hyde and the changes overall, and then Babbage coming in, Taron Johnson becomes one of like these key senior elder statesmen, even though he's still young, guys on this defense like him and Matt Milano and potentially Ed Oliver. And I would throw Terrell Bernard in there, even though he's young, but he's just such a, from a football IQ standpoint and leadership standpoint, he's like one of those dudes. Taron Johnson becomes a very integral piece in a defense that's overseeing a lot of changes on and off the field. And then especially in that secondary, that back seven, like, in general, going back to what's, transpired between these past couple of years. But yeah, there's so many changes in the secondary, and him playing such a premium position, an important position, being very good at it, being an all-pro last year, and then also knowing the bodies that left, he becomes a real potential focal point. So I thought it was nice for him to get an interview kind of right off the bat in this like practice session of the offseason with OTAs, and kind of him getting some shine and really being able to put his voice out there for the media as opposed to just being on the field.
Yeah, and it's going to be so cool to watch, because for years, a lot of stuff between Taron Johnson, who is kind of the bridge between the second level and the third level when you're talking linebackers and the secondary, he's kind of that bridge. He's making sure that they're cohesive and playing together when it comes to coverages. And a lot of that came non-verbally from Poyer and Hyde. And they were, anytime, like there was a video a few years ago where they were working on disguising a coverage, and you saw Poyer and Hyde speaking with Taron Johnson and how to set it up pre to post snap and make it look this way, but then change into something else. And that's gone. And so you're going to see that communication. And one of the beat reporters asked a great question. I want to credit, I'm pretty sure it was Mark Gahn, our boy from the Buffalo News, asked about, how that communication may change now with those two guys gone, and Hyde and Poyer. And he, Taron said, we always were communicating, whether it was nonverbal or verbal. And that's not going to change now. But what's going to happen now? It's going to be Taron saying, no, you need to do this, instead of, hey, I'm going to do this. You're going to do it. Like, instead of more of like a, hey, we're working together in the secondary, he may be directing it, especially early on with some of those pieces on the back end kind of figuring themselves out. And we don't even really know who's going to start back there. So yes, Taron Johnson is going to be super important this year with those guys in the secondary gone. But aside from him, is there anything else that stood out in OTAs from the pressers or even some of the practices?
No, I would, for me, I don't want to drill too hard on the negatives, but I like seeing, I like the practice footage being put out. And like, I usually just make like hyperbolic jokes when I see like just a generic rep and then put like retweet it or something like that. But it is interesting to see people that are able to pick out the details versus people that are not. And some of the detail pieces, again, just like footwork or how someone runs a route, how they stem a route, how they break down, how efficient they are in their movement, are things that I think are key to watch for. Again, I think you and I, man, how people in like the off season are like, oh, did you hear so-and-so like unfollow their team on Instagram or this and that? The people that like try to do all that for like those off the field things, that's what we're like for any footage from OTAs, where we're like every drill and rep, we're trying to like watch with like a magnifying glass to see if we can pick out anything and everything. So I know we go a little towards the extreme, but
get this out in front of my face. I don't want to see that. That's not a good rep. That's not a good rep. Don't even say that.
That's exactly right. And so it's been interesting to see some of the pieces coming out and kind of who's getting praised for what, when they maybe necessarily shouldn't be, and who's excited about player A for a rep that player A did not have a good rep with. But like we were talking about offline, I thought it was pretty, I don't want to say maybe vanilla is the right way to put it, but pretty vanilla with the footage. I feel like, because again, to your point, the past couple of seasons, we've done full, or not even full episodes, but like we've done episodes where like half of it has been breaking down OTA film, because we've had like genuine practice footage. Or just
it's so much fun too.
It's awesome. And I feel like this year there wasn't a ton of volume, and what there was pretty vanilla and generic, and not anything that, especially for us, where we're trying to squeeze as much juice from the stone as we can. There really wasn't too much. So I was a little disappointed at that.
Yeah, I would agree. And that's why, like, the thing that stood out to me it was during McDermott's presser, and honestly, after listening to and watching some of the beat reporters' tweets from practices, it kind of fell in line with what McDermott was talking about, and that was wide receiver Chase Claypool. It's not what I expected the first couple of days of OTAs to hear beat reporters and then hear Sean McDermott kind of praise Claypool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm glad. If I support one college football team, it is the Fighting Irish.
Okay. I
And
hate him.
so
As a Miami guy, I hate him. I hate
know you
Notre
do.
Dame for forever.
A lot of people do, though. That's the thing. They're
Oh,
like
that's fair.
they're like the Yankees of college football.
Yeah,
Really.
that's fair. You don't have to go too far to find someone who
Yeah.
like hates Notre Dame. That's fair.
Right. So I was surprised to hear McDermott praise him. And again, this is where you have to start to kind of interpret those things, or at least approach it with a grain of salt, right? Is he doing that because he knows that player needs that boost mentally?
Mm-hmm.
Or is he doing that out of, hey, no, he's actually showing out, and showing the effort that he needs to see from Claypool for Claypool to have a role in the Bills offense and on this team. So again, you can interpret it however you want, but him mentioning him and then seeing, several beat reporters talk about how good of a practices Claypool had. Good for him, man. I'm excited. I'll always root for an underdog. I will always root for a second chance and third chance guys like Chase Claypool.
Yeah. I just hope some of the. I'm less concerned about the on-field ability. Granted, he hasn't tapped into like his potential physically and on-field and what he could be. I'm less concerned about that and more concerned about just the maturity level and who like he is. Like not even just think. I know the one that gets brought up a ton. With like the end of game scenario against Minnesota and just what he was doing in that. But I always think of when they lost to the Bengals or they lost to the Browns and then he was on like his Twitch stream and just the immaturity that's come from him. But if he's course corrected that, like that's awesome. And I think it also comes at a position where we talked about it a little last week, kind of the top 5 wide receivers seemingly kind of seem set. But I think the battle for like wide receiver 6 and on is going to be super intense between Claypool and Shorter and Shavers and Hamler and whoever else tries to stake a claim. Maybe, Andy Isabella like makes a jump there. And especially seeing how that grouping pairs with that top 5, whoever that top 5 is. I wasn't expecting to come away seeing so many people talking about Chase Claypool, but then like the pessimist in me is like, oh, of course. Like, I mean, dude is big and strong and fast. So of course he's going to look great in these kind of like non-padded, like against air type of practices. So we'll see where he potentially goes from there. But
so if McDermott said that, I assume the effort has looked good so far. That's basically the ceiling of what I'm saying. Like that is basically where we're at. And so if his effort wasn't there, I don't think McDermott would have praised him like he did. So I think it's a start. That's literally all it is. It's a start. And like you said, that start matters to a guy like Claypool where he is in the wide receiver room.
I'm waiting for this to get like clipped, and it's like Erik Turner of Cover One says Chase Claypool is wide receiver 1 for the Bills going into the season.
Notre Dame homer,
right? Yeah, Notre Dame homer. Erik Turner loves Chase Claypool as wide receiver option 1. Says Bills will not miss Stephon Diggs.
Right.
I want to bring up this comment again from. I brought it up earlier, but I wanted to highlight again from Ashley. I think this is so great about OTAs and even camp stuff in general. Ashley said it's so hard to decide what little things are quote unquote nothing versus quote unquote something. And then she gives examples like Aaron Rodgers isn't running on his toes. Is he okay? Claypool ran a lazy route. Diggs didn't show up. Is something up? And she put it in all caps. Like, I think that's a good point too. Like as we again move towards like real stuff, everybody's always trying to piece together and parse through information and little stories of like, okay, is that a throwaway line? Is that a line that matters? I mean, we even did a little bit with the Taron Johnson line with Babbage. Is he just, did he misspeak or is this really what's going to happen? And this is that time, not necessarily smokescreen season, but that season for trying to kind of figure out what everything means, especially for a team like the Bills that have so many pieces in transition from an on the field and off the field perspective. And so this is just going to increase as we go further leading into training camp, which we will most likely be at again this year to kind of preface that for some people. But Erik, let's pivot away from, or anything else on OTAs before we pivot. That's what
please get us some more footage, please.
I know, right? More film, please. More film. So let's pivot to the focus on tonight's episode, someone for which we do have a lot of film to break down and talk about, and that is Mr. Ray Davis, running back from the University of Kentucky. a fun pairing potentially with James Cook. I also think his skill set is fun considering some of the other running backs the Bills have had in this
Yeah.
Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott era. But I made a joke on, I think it was night 2 of the draft, when I was like, man, everybody's gonna be real upset when the Bills take Trey Benson in like round 2 or round 3. And they didn't. They went running back in round 4, which wasn't too early. But they go running back here. They get that complimentary piece to James Cook, and somebody who, this running back class wasn't too overwhelming, but there was value in spots. And I don't know how you felt, but when I dove into the film of Ray Davis, I knew of him and I'd seen several Kentucky games, but he had a couple reps and clips that legitimately like made me raise my eyebrows and go, oh, like I perked up for his footwork, some of his vision and pacing. I think this is a nice, exciting player to add, as we kind of set the table for him in this episode and break down who and what he is and how we can fit into this offense.
Yeah, what was so interesting about them taking him is the fact that you talked about the compliment to James Cook, but he's not the compliment we thought, the type of back that we thought they were going to go after. Now, I'm not mad at what they, the type of player they brought in Ray Davis. I do think that he's, he has some of the similar, like same skill sets as James Cook, but he is a little thicker, and I'd say he's more creative a runner than James Cook is. But they are able to pitch in the, the receiving game, as you'll see tonight. Pass blocking is probably right around the same. I think you see some more impact, blocks from Ray Davis as opposed to James Cook, but they're both pretty good at identifying what rusher's coming and picking them up. Sometimes, though, obviously James Cook isn't able to anchor down. You're going to see some of those issues with Ray Davis as well, but it's not the compliment I thought they were going to bring in. But with that said, 5'8", 211, 212, he's actually, kind of thicker when you're looking at, relative to James Cook. And especially if you go like to YouTube, you watch some of the practice film of him where he's mic'd up and stuff, and you see him up close, you can see there, he's short, but he's stout and he's a little thicker running back. But I like the schemes and concepts he ran in at Kentucky. He obviously played at Vanderbilt and Temple too. He's the first active player in D1 to chart 1,000 yards, rushing yards at 3 different schools. So that right there is talent. Now he's a little on the older side, but who cares? It's a running back, right?
Yep, that's exactly right. Like, and this is my biggest takeaway, not biggest takeaway, but one of my main takeaways with him is, the compliment to Cook is more. He kind of operates in a similar fashion from a skill set and play style and frame perspective. Like, I think he's like this amalgamation of like Zach Moss and Devin Singletary in a lot of ways, which isn't this crazy departure from Cook. Not the same, but not necessarily the compliment that we thought. But what I do think is interesting, because he's basically like above average at almost everything. Like, if you were rating him on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is like perfect, I think on like most things, he's anywhere from like a 6 to a 7.5, which I think is a nice pairing for an every down type of back. But also, if they don't re-sign James Cook in 2 years, which again, it's tough for running backs to get second contracts, I think Ray Davis gives you this solid baseline for then bringing in another running back to pair with him, because he does so many things well. He gives you a little bit of speed, a little bit of burst, a little bit of power. He's a much better receiver out of the backfield, both in terms of design routes and leaking out of the backfield, than he gets credit for. To your point with the pass pro, he scans well. Not necessarily the most effective all the time when it comes to picking up the man and stonewalling the man, but he reads it, he understands it. I also think that's something that's symptomatic of college running backs a lot nowadays. Like, I wish there was better pass protection coming out, but I understand the nature of college football, and not everybody's Kyron Williams, who just comes out ready to like pass pro their ass off on every single rep. So I think it's an interesting compliment now, but also potentially long-term, because again, if you keep churning out those running backs where, every 2 years you're bringing in someone new. And then again, Ray Davis, who cares how old he is right now? He's probably not going to see a second contract. James Cook probably doesn't see a second contract, but then Davis gives you a nice foundation and table where you can go in a multitude of different directions 2 years from now as you continue to churn that position.
And one thing I was surprised to see on film from Davis was his ability to run inside. It was really good. And they ran at Kentucky. They ran a lot of heavy sets. They ran some pistol with those heavy sets. And a lot of times you see him coming downhill into the A gap and then just scanning and running the ladder. Okay, linebackers into the A gap, into the B gap. Now I can bounce it and kind of draw on those linebackers in. He's really good at running inside and shows the patience, I think, that could pair well in the Bills run game under Aaron Cromer when I do think Cromer, again, he's going to pull those tackles. I think he's going to start to pull multiple offensive linemen even more. I do think they're going to run a lot more gap scheme this year. And I think Davis excels in that a little bit more, especially if you're trying to keep it in between the tackle on those gap runs and those power runs, on those counter trays. I think Davis shows better timing and elusiveness of getting in and out of those blocks on those type of runs. But again, I like the pairing either way. When he's in there versus Cook or Cook versus Davis, that floor is not dropping out. It could still be a pass. It's not going to be a tendency, it's not going to show a tendency when
doesn't tip your hand
in there. It does not tip your hand. So that is a good thing. And again, I'm excited. I'm excited to get to some of this film tonight.
Yeah, it's a nice piece. That's a huge takeaway as well. That, again, you're putting him in there and it's not like, okay, here comes the short, yardage run, or okay, it's definitely a pass. Like, because he does give you a little bit of everything, he doesn't tip your hand. So there's not that tendency drop off or lack thereof if Cook comes out and Ray Davis comes in. I like your thought too with the gap scheme runs. Bills had a 46% gap run rate last year, which was the third most in the league. I really feel like they continue to lean in that way, given how the offensive line has changed a little bit. But I think the running game is going to be important regardless. Davis could see more reps than, people may potentially think, just because of the multitude of runs they engage in. And it makes sense given, like you said, like his pacing, his understanding, and especially how he operates between the tackles as we start out here.
All right. Yeah. Let's get to the film now. So pacing, burst, it's really the name of the game with him. This is against Florida. This was his monster game, and that footwork, I'm going to pause it and let it go in slow motion. There's some footwork that a running back has to have to time up with the blocks, and watch it right here. You see like a little manipulation of the stride there, and then boom, he's upfield on that run. Again, I have to slow it down because it really is an important play. Like right here, he's taking that little hop step right there. This is allowing all of this to develop and those guys to engage. And then boom, as soon as they do it, he almost times it perfectly for his blockers for him to get north and south.
Yeah, and that pairs well with, he's not, ironically, even though this is like a 75-yard touchdown run, he's not really a home run hitter, but he does have that good burst in short yardage areas, kind of like Devin Singletary. He's got the agility that can kind of make him miss in a phone booth, and he's got good quickness in that 0 to 10-yard range. And you pair it with that pacing and that vision like you show here, it's really nice. Like this is a run where you don't want to just, okay, let me get full speed right away and kind of run into the backside or one of your dudes, or don't let that block really develop and someone's coming free or someone's able to come over the top because you don't let that block get set. This is a good track. This is a good vision. It's a nice pacing. And then, yes, the footwork. You see it so much on his runs, even here where he's using it to set up. It's just clean. It's efficient. It's precise. He takes that little gather step and then he puts that left foot into the ground, gets vertical, and boom, look, that quick little hop, just a quick little, I don't know, tenth or a quarter of a second delay, like you said, just to let things wash over and get clean, and then foot in the ground, get north and south, break an arm tackle because you're got a little bit of some mini muscle hamster to you, like Charles says in the comments, and you get a nice run.
Yeah, and that was a duo run with the quarterback under center. The Bills love duo. We break it down each and every week.
Yep.
Here's another play, again, showing that pacing and setup. And I have this outline because don't be surprised with this X wide receiver if the Bills don't put Coleman in this position in this tight split and lead him like you see on this play, as this wide receiver comes across the formation and is able to lead right there. And then you see that cut by Davis. Oof. Like his timing and ability to be patient behind the line of scrimmage. You see that hesitation as soon as he gets the ball, like right there, see him kind of skip. That allows that wide receiver to get across the formation, allows this blocker to wash that guy down. He's setting up this, and you can already see he hits that cutback lane. His vision is spectacular when you're talking gap or zone runs, and hitting those cutback lanes. It's something that he excels at, and we're going to see it next year in the Bills offense.
It's so funny, too, when you put him in juxtaposition with Cook, because one of our things with James Cook coming out was he wouldn't let those plays develop. Like he was trying to he would press with zone and, let things develop and go. But when it came to gap runs, he was almost like, got to get it, got to go. Right. And Davis is the opposite. He lets things breathe. Like you show here, he takes, again, like some more kind of delayed footwork in the backfield to let his wide receiver come and pull through and lead through the hole. And then again, this one's nice with the vision. He's already seeing that second level develop and how the flow is going to that strong side. And you can see when he makes the cut, it's not the sharpest, and it doesn't have to be because he's already got it set up and he sees how the play is developing. And then again, that burst, he's got enough to get through the hole. Not this home run hitter, not this blazing 4-4 dude, but he's got enough speed to get through those holes in the first and second level. And when you pair it with his frame, if somebody's off a little bit and all they get is an arm or a shoulder on him, it's going to be hard to bring him down.
Yeah, and again, he doesn't have the long speed that, we'd probably like or even see from James Cook at times. But man, the way he times some of these runs, especially these gap runs, again, here's that, power run with a puller on the backside and just how he dips inside just right here.
So good.
And that gets this free linebacker hung up just a bit. And then boom, he has that burst. Like he hits that C and D gap out there, out wide on the perimeter. He's, off to the races for a nice chunk run there. Like his timing and setup on these power runs, on these gap runs is just spectacular.
Yeah, 17 for Florida is essentially free, and Davis has to make him miss somehow, some way, and he uses that climbing, whatever that tight end or H-back is, 85. He uses him to effectively block two players. 85 climbs to that second level, picks up number 6, as you have highlighted there. And then, like you said, Davis makes that little hesitation move and dips that shoulder, and it gets 17 to commit inside. And then, whoop, nope, just kidding. No, I'm not going inside. I'm actually going outside. And 17 is already committed. And now Davis used his man to block two dudes and essentially beat that free runner without having to actually do anything himself in the open field or break the tackle. That's real nice. That's a real nice job of using your blocks when the defense has a numbers advantage potentially, and you're able to erase it.
Yeah, here's another, gap run. This time a counter trey. He's got 2 pullers with him. But again, watch the footwork. Again, this is that big game against Florida. So you got 2 pullers coming across the formation. Everyone on the front side is just trying to wash everyone down. But this is a long developing play. You have to have patience on this. And he does. So he's coming down the line of scrimmage off the dot in pistol. You see him just patient. His blockers having him engage right here. The pullers having him engage, but you see him hide behind those blockers. And then boom, they engage. And he's through that gap immediately. He times it perfectly once again.
I muted myself. I'm embarrassed. I'm out. This has been it for me. Thank you. Thanks, folks. Have a good one. We say it every year. It's like an evergreen tweet. I want the Bills to run more pistol. I said it last night in disguise. It would just be great if they ran more pistol. And so I immediately see this play and I'm like, more pistol. But again, another one, like little GT counter here, lets his pullers get out in front, lets that play breathe, lets it develop. This sideline view is a nice one because boom, it really highlights that hesitation in the backfield and how it lets the blocks develop like you've highlighted there. It lets that outside get sealed. It lets his inside puller get to that second level, turn and seal and bury his man. He lets this hole develop. If he plays this too fast, his blockers don't get there, and maybe he's only getting a 1 yard gain or a 2 yard gain. Instead, he has that little hesitation. He's got the burst. Vision. Yes. Again, that's that 0 to 10 burst. You're not going to, especially in the NFL, you're not going to see him turn 10 yards into 40 in a cloud of dust or whatever, but he can take a 5 yard gain and turn it into a 12 to 15 yard gain in a hurry.
Dude, that little hesitation and then burst away from from defenders, it reminds me of DeAndre Swift at Georgia, man. Like he runs just like that. He's the same height and weight pretty much as well. Maybe just a tad less explosive when it comes to that burst, but you see again these runs with multiple pullers, and he's got that patience, especially off the dot, and he lets things develop. But you see that boom, he bursts away from that, sets up his blocks. It's just nasty, man. He's so much fun to watch when he's running again from the dot, but also in these gap runs.
Yeah, these gap runs, again, we get some more pullers here. We get a pulling guard and we get that pulling H or F, depending on how you want to label it there. And again, it's just his moves in close quarters, like what he's able to do at the line or at the second level, make guys miss in a phone booth and kind of transition or chain moves together. He's breaking this tackle at the line and then, just gets to the second level and whoop, just leaves dudes kind of like leaning, grabbing at ankles. Like that dude, the dude you highlighted gets nothing but air on Davis because he has that lateral agility and explosion. Yeah, he's got that shake. Like he's got some legitimate ankle breaking ability to his game. And when you pair that with the lateral agility, the burst, the clean footwork, that's how he's able to make those dudes miss in confined spaces and why, putting him in a gap scheme is so another one. Like
Oh
that's why putting
god.
him in that gap scheme is beneficial because that's how you have to win in those close quarters and make one-on-one dudes miss.
He just, he uses his feet and his acceleration to make his hips disappear, like you saw in that last play where that defender is grasping at air. Here's one where he bounces outside, and you see the footwork once again freezing defender. So right here, he's bouncing outside, and you could argue that probably he shouldn't have. Probably should just
Yes.
hit it right up in
Agreed.
here.
Yep.
But again, he uses his physical skills to get outside, and he breaks that tackle. Now he's on the perimeter. Now watch this little 1-2, 1-2. Like that's crazy, dude. Like that step and that footwork allows him to attack inside, get this guy to freeze his feet, attack
Yep.
inside, and then bounce it out wide. Like that's some nasty footwork right there. Again, I can't unsee DeAndre Swift here.
He's just got like his feet are quick, they're controlled, there's precise movement. There's not a lot of wasted movement in his steps, in his stride, in his shoulders, in his hips. Like everything is quick,
Dude,
controlled,
look,
fluid, efficient.
Anthony, look at his left foot here. Okay, right, boom, boom.
Bang.
Dude, he uses
Yeah.
the left foot twice. One,
Twice.
two, and then outside, dude.
It's like he's like tap dancing with that left foot and just like using that. Like that left foot, double taps before that right foot even makes another move, freezes that defender. And all that's all he needs is a little bit, like just freeze you a little bit. Let me get that outside, get some leverage, and then kind of power through and turn the corner. And again, that's not going to turn. He's going to turn the corner. He's up the sideline and he's gone. But he can turn that gain that was probably left for maybe 2 or 3, and he turns it into 8, 9, or a new set of downs.
Yeah, and I love how he gets his shoulders square. When you're running from shotgun, it's a lot different than running from the dot, behind the quarterback, whether that quarterback's under center or in the pistol. Running sideways, you have, especially when you have these gap runs where you're getting multiple pullers, you at some point you do have to get square. And look at how he sets this one up. This defender right here is doing a great job of setting that edge. This blocker's already curling inside, but you see one go get the forced player out wide, and that's when you see, boom, you see him get square, and now look at the gap that he finds right there. So he essentially, stretched the defense horizontally and then got square. Again, patience. This takes time. This takes time to develop and patience from a running back, but boom, he gets to square, gets squared to the line of scrimmage. He gets north and south.
Yeah, again, that patience, like you said, to let the play breathe, let it develop, and then the vision and pairing it all together, just being able to press that outside a little bit and then know where that flow is coming from, have the change of direction to then get north and south, and then boom, get through that hole. This time he gets brought down with a really nice tackle by the man at the first level there. Well, technically second level once he climbs back and scrapes there. But again, just trying to make something out of nothing, like recognizing the ability to let your blockers get a hat on a hat. And he does that regularly. Like, again, just sometimes the running back has to set those blocks up for the lineman, and he does that with regularity. I think he's a type of dude who has a running style where he can make his offensive lineman better because of how he lets the play develop, and then he has that short area burst and urgency plus feet to be able to take advantage of the blocks he sets up.
Right. And so here's a play that kind of shows off his vision and his anticipation of the Georgia defense, really, at the point of attack, just shutting it down. As soon as he takes this handoff on this zone run, he's cutting it back. He sees everyone blitzing off the set left side of the screen here. He immediately cuts it back and finds that backside gap. Again, gets north and south and salvages a play. He only took a negative rush 17.4% of the time. That was one of the best in his draft class. And you can see it on this play. And that is because of his vision and his anticipation to make this cutback and find that backside gap.
Yeah, split zone run. And like you said, he sees what's happening front side, is immediately like, nope, let me take this out the front door there. And then look at the move that he puts on Javon Bullard there. Like he sees that flow, like you said, and just puts the foot in the ground. Bullard, fast flow type of player, gets him to kind of just almost look out of control as he's flowing over the top. And then as he cuts through, again, shoulder on a knee, on a leg, Davis is able to get through that and then take that down inside the 5 and get further into the low red zone. But it all starts because of that initial vision. And then he's got the urgency to get upfield and press where he needs to, paired with that vision.
Yeah, here's another fantastic cutback on a power run here. The number 94 does a great job setting that edge. So what's he do? You look at his eyes. He's already moved on. He knows where he's going. He's already looking at this blocker and seeing if he is able to pick up his defender, which he does. But 95 puts his hat right into the gap. And so he freestyles. He cuts off of it, Very nice. Again, staying square, cuts off of it, finds another gap, makes a couple guys miss, and now he's into that second and third level.
That move at the line to beat 95, it makes me think Devin Singletary. Like, this is the one I see, like the way he just puts that one foot in the ground, stabs, and then gets lateral and then gets upfield. It's just very Singletary-esque. And again, this is a nice one. Like, that's not a bad block from his man on 95 there from his right guard, but 95 is able to win with some leverage and get his head in that gap. So Ray Davis just makes one cut that makes his man right and makes the defensive lineman wrong, and then makes another dude miss at the second level. Like, he's going to make, what is that, 14? He's going to make 14 miss if not for the extra help that comes from the other defender. So he makes one miss and then boom, is about to make another one. But number one comes down off the edge and chases him down with a nice hustle play there. Again, just making dudes miss in close quarters that make you miss in a phone booth type of agility and explosion that Ray Davis has.
And you just mentioned Singletary, and these are some of the negative things that I saw with him. And coincidentally enough, Singletary had some of these issues as well. With behind the line of scrimmage, staying there a little too long on these outside zone runs. When on zone runs, like, you just need to get north and south. And so you see him take a negative here when really he's trying to press outside here, but there's your gap. Hit it. Yes, you have pursuit coming right here, but you get north and south on these zone runs. You don't want to waste time behind the line of scrimmage because now you have all these guys folding in pursuit. If he just gets north and south here, it's going to be a positive play. He kind of draws it out a little too long and he gets caught from behind. So these are this type of plays where you're seeing some of those negatives. That's why I put so many of those plays being gap runs, whether they're power or counter tray, from under center, from shotgun, from pistol, because I think that's where his strengths lie. Outside zone, not so much.
Yeah, especially because he doesn't have that type of long speed where you can delay a little bit and then still press and turn the corner. Like, he needs to get there. And as you have highlighted there to the defenders from Mississippi State, like, you're seeing that front side is cut off. Like, that far edge is being set. And then that interior defender has his head in the outside gap there against 68. Like, there's nowhere to go. And we showed the one earlier where he could have banged it up inside against Florida, but instead bounced it outside, made the play on the corner, and then was able to get upfield a little bit. He can't live in that space regularly because of his lack of long speed and overall, I think, like, athleticism paired with it. And then even more so in the NFL, like, that's going to get you killed in the NFL where dudes are bigger, stronger, and faster. And especially too, again, with his frame, just banging up inside, like, get north and south. And here's another example too, like, just trying to string it out a little too much and playing into the defense's hands a little bit and trying to make something out of nothing and doing too much.
It crosses mind. It crosses mind at least here, because you see him looking to cut and get north and south, but for whatever reason, again, he cuts it back outside.
I think he sees that flash of color from 44, and he's like, no, I can go outside. And then he's like, uh-oh, I made a mistake.
Sure. And again, you have a little space in here, and he's so good at making guys miss in a phone booth. Like, I trust him here. But at the very least, okay, maybe that guy makes a tackle on you, but it's at the line of scrimmage. You're not taking these kind of losses. But again, it doesn't happen often, but it's on these type of runs where you're seeing some hesitation. You're seeing like muddy reads from a running back when it comes to outside zone. And so that showed up a few times, and that's something I wanted to bring up with him.
No, and I think that's a fair point, especially for an offense that this year with the Bills, we'll see how they're able to generate explosives. But I think staying on schedule, it's important every year for every team. But I think for the Bills this year, it's going to be very important, just given the construction of the roster.
Right.
I combined both words. Sorry there. How the roster has been constructed, how Brady's offense wants to be. I just think staying on schedule, and again, turning a 1st and 10 into 2nd and 7 or 2nd and 8 isn't the end of the world, but having it be 2nd and 12 and 2nd and 13 and setting themselves up to be behind the sticks and get into these negative situations. I think it's also something too that can hopefully be coached out of him a little bit. Again, Cook had some of these issues coming out, and granted, it's taken a couple years, but he's been able to get through. I'm hoping they can just kind of get the word to Davis and be like, hey man, just get north and south, get forward. We don't need you to do too much in these scenarios where we just want to stay on script and stay on schedule.
And I will say the Bills tackles on the backside of outside zone runs do a great job on those cutoff blocks. So
true. Yeah. The athleticism of Brown and Dawkins helps so much.
So if he can just get up inside or make the cutback on the bend, it'll be there for him. So let's move on to the passing game. We're going to start off with some screens. And for him, I looked up his screen numbers, from 2020 to 2023. He was 7th in receiving yards off of screens. You're going to see several of these plays here tonight. He was 1st in touchdowns with 5. And I bring that up because we know when it comes to the Bills offense, pretty much since Josh Allen's been the quarterback, the Bills have struggled to get a screen game going to their running backs. Is this the year under Joe Brady? We will see. Last year, these numbers are nuts. 2 running backs. The Bills had 15 screen attempts to running backs last season. That was 31st overall. Oof. Any interest in seeing the success rate and EPA per dropback? Okay, I got you. It's not good. It's not good. The Bills were awful when it came to the stats and success percentage on screens to running backs and the EPA per dropback, as you can see there.
And real quick, so just to put this into perspective for people who don't know necessarily what like EPA means, like them basically being a kind of like a negative 0.6, they're what this is essentially saying is they're basically losing like half a point on the scoreboard every time they have one of these screen attempts. Like that's what it is. Like if you have an EPA attempt of 1, that means like the expected points you're adding on at this play is 1. So you're putting points on the board. They're literally taking almost a full point away from themselves with these screens. And again, like I mean, I don't even want to get into it again because we've talked about it so much. The reason that they've struggled throughout the years, and granted, there's some on design and coordinators, but a lot of it comes down to Allen, how defenses play him, how he paces and plays when it comes to screens, especially to running backs out of the backfield. But yeah, maybe this is the year because Davis is extremely effective in the screen game. And every little bit would help because this is so ugly, like to be, and especially look at the offenses you're around there with. Like Carolina was a dumpster fire. The Bears were a dumpster fire. The Colts were working through quarterback situations and things. The Giants offense was terrible. The Cardinals were playing with whoever they could find at quarterback. They almost suited me up there last year. Like that's just not where you want to be.
Yeah, it's rough to watch. Again, 15 screen attempts to running backs last year. And again, James Cook is a good running back that you want to get to in those situations. But instead, they did more of, hey, we're going to check it down and use that as part of the screen game, which, again, it worked at times when Josh wanted to do that. But they do have to get screens going. And maybe it's something that they commit to more in practice under Joe Brady because of all those too high safety looks and how they've stressed wanting to get yards after the catch and run after the catch ability. Like maybe this is the year, maybe this is the coordinator that can figure it out for the Bills offense and getting some screens to the running back. Because as you said, I do think that Ray Davis is damn good at, at that because he doesn't waste time. You see this versus Georgia. Blitz is coming, slips out, and you see him get the ball, and then he quickly evaluates what's in front of him and gets north and south, gets back behind those blockers down the field. They do a great job of getting down the field, right behind them, and he takes this to the house against Georgia.
And this is the nice additive bonus of like getting a back who was playing this level of caliber. Like you're going against Georgia, like the best of the best in terms of division, but in terms of team, like the past couple of years. So to see him be able to have this effectiveness out in space. So, and you see where his head is initially, he's looking left, but he sees the flow of 77 and then 62, like you highlighted there. So he sees them coming back, stays north and south, presses that interior of the field, breaks a tackle. And what happens? Malachi Starks, number 24, commits inside. So Davis just kind of swerves a little bit, pushes it to that front pylon, sets up that block a little bit for 77. Again, we highlighted so much of his block setup in close quarters. He also does a good job of it in space when he gets the ball on these screens, and that's why he's able to be successful. In addition to having some nice deception on that play initially, it looked like he's stepping up, ready to pick up a blitzer, and then just olays him a little bit, turns, gets his numbers to the QB, and makes a play. Here's a nice one, too, that pairs the timing and the vision along with some of that close quarters, miss ability and make him miss in a phone booth agility.
Yeah, fringe of the red zone screens work really well to him because that's when the defense wants to go to man coverage. Watch him evaluate this. So he steps up right here, and then as soon as he comes out, he sees that this linebacker is likely in one-on-one coverage with him. So he's just got to make that guy miss. And you see him as soon he puts his body in a position to catch it, and he has his eyes on that defender. Little hesitation makes that guy miss and gets up the sideline. Does a great job of finishing on this play as well to get in there for the touchdown against Florida.
Yeah, I like the initial move that's set up, like you said, with the body position to put him in a spot to succeed after he makes the catch. But it's the finish for me. I like that he doesn't just, okay, cool, like I made something out of nothing. Let me take this out of bounds. No, like he is basically sideways and figures a way to put his shoulder down into that corner and then get north and south and drive him a little bit. I think this ends up getting ruled a touchdown. I can't remember if it does or not. I think I looked it up and I don't remember. Yeah, it is called a touchdown. The ref called it on the field, and I think it stays that as well. And that's because he makes something out of nothing here. Like this ball is effectively completed behind the line of scrimmage or at it. He makes two dudes miss, finishes through a corner, knows his size, knows the down and distance and situation. This one is arguably my favorite. Like looking at him initially, like I just saw his frame and his production. I wasn't expecting rail routes out of the backfield in the red zone to be a part of his repertoire, but here we are.
Yeah, I mean, again, great call right on the fringes, or actually at the red zone. They're at the 20-yard line here. Play faking it to the running back and then getting the eyes this way and then just slowly leaking it up the sideline on the rail route. Great call, great design. And again, that matchup, like he's able to get matched up on a linebacker and a really nice throw out ahead of him, and he's able to reel it in. There is ability in the receiving game outside of just screens, and you can see it on this play.
And also, too, from a design standpoint, how number 6, the wide receiver there, how he runs his route a little bit to kind of run some semblance of interference. Like we saw pieces like this from Gabe Davis and things that Brady coached and tweaked to allow James Cook to get some space.
And to clear this, to get through the line of scrimmage in the second level is pretty big. It's something that we dinged James Cook for a lot of times when he was going on routes. He did a much better job last year. But his rookie year, he struggled getting through the line of scrimmage or getting through a linebacker level to get into that route down the field.
Yes, absolutely. And that's like the other big takeaway for me on this one. You highlighted it, like Davis's track on this one to get upfield and then get through that second level clean. He gets a little bit of some leverage help because of the route from number 6. So it puts makes 34 have to play underneath the route from the wide receiver and then kind of open up his hips and get upfield. But that's a good, efficient track. It's good pacing. It's good, again, vision with it, almost like you have to have that vision, like you actually have the ball and you're running it. And then a nice finish, like a 34 ends up getting himself in pretty good position. And Davis is able to look this ball in with some good ball tracking and maintain it through the ground, through the attempted break at the PBU. This is a really nice, clean, efficient route out of the backfield in a, high important leverage type situation.
All right. So now passing game, he's going to pitch in the receiving game, but this is where, he has his moments. Like he can identify with the best of them when it comes to identifying which rusher is coming. You see the defense, they're showing pressure, and you can see him point out to the right side, to the wide side of the field, and he knows that guy is coming. He does a great job of identifying him and then picking him up long enough for the quarterback to step up to get the ball down the field for a big play down the field. He's great at identifying those rushers, and a lot of times when you see these odd looks, these pressure looks, you're going to get a lot of man-on-man blocking. And then that 6th guy, that 7th guy, you have to process as a running back who's the most dangerous threat. And he does a great job of doing that on this play. And again, helping his offense, helping his quarterback step up, picking up that block so that the ball can get thrown down the field.
Yeah, he, like you said, the identification pre-snap and even his ability post-snap too when things are disguised well. Like he's a good scanner. He's a good processor. And then because of his size and frame, he is able to, be a little bit more hammer than a nail. And even when he is the nail, because he's thicker and has the good frame, he can withstand things a little bit. This is an area where I was happy to see him be effective in terms of scanning. I'm not holistically confident in him at the impact point and holding up consistently, although I think, some technique and form changes and coaching up can help him there. But this is an aspect that, I tweeted about it back before the draft, I think, and people kind of made fun of it a lot. Latavius Murray was really great with his blitz pickup and his pass protection. And that's an aspect of his game or of this offense that is needed. And I worry about them filling that void. So it's nice to see Davis kind of coming in and knowing where his head needs to be and just has to clean some things up when it comes to the actual execution.
And here's another play. We're going to see several clips from this game, but again, head up on the center. And so they're showing 5 across. And again, a lot of times that means you're getting man-on-man blocking here. And that means that 6th guy that may come, that is on the court, on the running back to pick up. And he does a great job of identifying 14 coming here on this simulated pressure. So again, they're actually trying to get this defender and pass rusher man-on-man with the running back, and they do. And Davis does a good job of picking it up. Now, the technique isn't perfect. You see, he's not square, but he does a great job of absorbing that defender's power and picking him up long enough so that the quarterback can get the ball off. But you see him then square up. So he absorbs it, he gets low, absorbs it, squares up, and then boom, anchors right there. I give him credit on this play. But as you'll see, the consistency isn't quite there in the next couple plays.
Yeah, a little bit of like an unconventional hop step to kind of re-anchor a little bit and kind of get set. What I really liked about this one is in the context of the game. There, like you said, there's several from this game. This one came after he got blown up by 14 on a rush on the previous drive. So it was nice to see in this game, him kind of course correct a little bit, and he gets better with each rep in picking up 14 as the game goes along. Again, like his eyes are usually there, his adjustment, his scanning.
Look at the movement.
Exactly. I was going to say, you're showing like they're trying to confuse the hell out of everything that's going on. And look at Davis just scanning, processing, he's watching, he's reading what's going on. And then they end up covering that center. They've got 5 down. This is a really good design and disguise from Mississippi State. And again, like you said, all with the idea of getting 14 one-on-one with Davis. And it's not the cleanest or the most conventional pickup, but he gets the job done. And
just get done.
Yes, just get it done. And that's what it is too, right? How many times do we say it? Like, it doesn't have to be the prettiest. Just stay between the defender and your quarterback and do it long enough for him to get the ball out, and it's a win.
Yeah, and here's one of those plays I just love seeing as a former running back, because this is actually a play action pass here. He's supposed to, execute the play fake, but he senses something coming off the edge here. So he has the ability, he has the green light to call off a run fake, because picking up a free rusher is way more important than a play fake itself. And you see him do just that. He gets up there, he bypasses that play fake, and does a good job of just picking that guy up, allowing that quarterback to sit in the pocket to get rid of this throw. Unfortunately, it is not completed on the back end.
Yeah, I was going to say, unfortunately, you do not get that clean result on the end. Yeah, he knows what the protection is doing up front. He knows that he's got that tight end coming across, but he sees what Louisville is doing from a front perspective. Like he said, like he just calls it off and goes and attacks and helps pick this up on the backside here. And I think that's a nice calming piece. Again, that ability to understand, process, read, understand things pre-snap, and again, even post-snap when things get disguised and hidden, like we showed the previous rep against Mississippi State. This is an aspect of his game that isn't perfect and needs to be cleaned up, but it's a nice additive and adds value to him on passing downs when you pair it with his receiving ability and screen game work and all that kind of stuff.
Here's another one from that Mississippi State game. You see the movement right at the snap. And so again, Davis and the offensive line have to pick this up, and 14 is free. And what does Davis do? Cuts his legs out right from under him. Very good pickup on this play. I'd like to see, I don't think we see enough cut blocks at the college or the NFL level. And I think if a well-executed cut block like this, taking that knee out, using the side of your body right there, is very nice. And again, it doesn't, result in a completion on the back end, but a really nice pickup on the fly from pre to post snap.
I was happy with how much, it wasn't a ton last year with Cook, but he used some cut blocks with more regularity versus his rookie year. And I think he needs to, given his size and frame. So this is a nice piece too. Again, like we talked about or I mentioned a couple clips ago against 14 when he picked him up on the blitz. So the first time 14 trucks him. The second time was the one we showed where he turns a little bit and then hops and anchors and is able to get him. And then, oh yeah, that's that first one. This was the first one, even though we showed it like third in chronological order. So he just gets completely owned, gets driven back, isn't able to anchor. We showed that second one where he turns a little bit, but is able to hop and anchor. And then this time he's like, you know what? I'm just going for the cut. Let me throw a shoulder into the legs and drop him. I like how, again, it's just kind of like poking and prodding and testing a little bit as the game goes along, him learning, understanding what's working, what's not, what do I have to fix. I like being able to see that real-time in-game adjustment, and I think that ability to show that really speaks to his football IQ and his understanding of what it takes and what it's going to need to get the job done.
Right. And here's one that, we're going to get into some of the anchor and ability to anchor or lack thereof. But again, another really nice pickup here with this number 10 defender coming late on the pressure. And you see him do a great job of attacking, moving to the line of scrimmage, not giving up ground. You see him right here, get his hands inside, get his hips low and anchor down. Very nice rep here. It's not something he does consistently, but you can see the technique is there. The thought, the identification is there. We just have to work on refining the technique so that it becomes more consistent to see more reps like this, as opposed to some of the other ones you're going to see in a couple minutes.
Absolutely. Very well said. And I hope my hope for him with pass pro is because the processing is there. And with his size and frame, it being at 211 pounds, like I really do trust that he can get coached up. And like you can't teach his size and frame and the processing and the football IQ. That's harder to acquire. So I think I'm encouraged to hopefully see more of these reps as we get into his career. Maybe not necessarily right out of the gate as a rookie, but as he gets coached up, as he goes forward. I mean, James Cook has made strides in his pass protection, and he doesn't have the size and frame and thickness that Ray Davis does, which puts him at a disadvantage. Davis, I think, physically is better equipped for pass protection. And then with his football IQ, pairs even better. And if he can just get coached up to execute these pieces regularly, like he could be a very effective every down back, and especially on third downs.
Yeah, because these are the things that show up, that anchor. I previewed it earlier. Again, he identifies it very well.
Yep.
But when you have guys at the NFL that can just do this on a regular basis to a running back, you're going to have issues for your quarterback. And luckily, the quarterback is able to get this ball away. But that anchor is something that, we've talked about it with Cook. We've talked about it with Singletary. These smaller backs, especially the lighter ones like James Cook, not necessarily Ray Davis, they're going to struggle at times to anchor. And it's something that you see a bunch in his film when you're talking his pass pro.
I love in that Mississippi State game, the one where he gets blown up, the quarterback completes it, and then the other two where he does a good job are incompletions. Like, it's just like, what are the odds of that? And yeah, you see like 14 is a monster, but NFL size, NFL length, NFL speed, like it's not just
and coordinators. They're going to try to get those monsters matched up for running backs and passing situations, play in and play out.
Absolutely. And my immediate thought goes to, if I'm the Jets, I'm trying to figure out a way to get Quincy Williams to come screaming through the A gap and have exactly. And then Ray Davis is going to have to pick him up. And you know what Quincy Williams is doing? He's not trying to get cute. He's going to try and run through your face, and you got to be able to pick him up. And it's not enough just to ID it and be thick and be strong. You got to have the form and technique to go with it. And again, that's where that challenge is going to be. Because like we said, and we've shown, the scanning is there, the processing is there, but that effectiveness at the block point, at the block pickup, isn't necessarily where you want it to be. But he is well equipped given the mental side and his physical makeup. No, so just clean up some technique, clean up the feet, clean up the form, your hand placement. And I'm encouraged by it because of how well he's able to deduce things mentally.
Yeah, and you saw it in some of those simulated pressures, those creeper pressures, where they're making it look like they're blitzing, but they're only sending 4, but they get the matchup they want on the running back. All that defensive coordinator wants to do is affect the quarterback, not necessarily get a sack, but get the ball out quickly or get the quarterback off the spot.
Yeah,
it doesn't take much. And, if Josh is dropping back to pass and he doesn't quite trust that Davis is going to be able to pick up the block, he's going to want to run and scramble out. And then just, again, good things can happen from that. There's no doubt because it's Josh Allen. True. But you're affecting the quarterback, and a lot of coordinators, that's what they want to do. They want to get that monster linebacker or that monster edge, that sixth guy, matched up versus a running back, and then just create havoc and create disruption to the passing game. He's going to have to step up his game a little bit. But as you said, from the shoulders up, he's got it. Just refining that technique, adding a little more play strength at the next level. I think he'll be just fine when it comes to pass protection.
Yeah, and I think that's a very fair sentiment. And again, I think it's an aspect that isn't the most important thing in the world and isn't the hugest hole that exists on this offense. But Latavius Murray was very effective as that third down dude. I mean, he also made some ridiculous plays, like as a pass catcher, right, and out in the open field. But just his blitz pickup, his pass protection, we'd highlight it on this show. It'd be like Allen would make some crazy run. I mean, what did the the Allen scramble for the touchdown against the Eagles. That only happens because of Latavius Murray picking up that blitz and coming across. Yeah, like, and it doesn't, people forget or don't even notice it because, like, man, what a play by Allen. That doesn't happen without the pickup from Latavius Murray, and having a guy who can potentially have that pass pro upside in Ray Davis is, again, another aspect that I'm just excited for in his game. And I think that pass pro is also a good microcosm, again, of like who he is.
Yeah.
It's not amazing, but it's not bad or subpar. Everything he does is anywhere from like a 6 to a 7 to a 7.5. And that pairs well with almost any type of running back and or sets your foundation and floor going forward should you try to revamp that room.
I mean, his overall character and background and story, it really is. It shows that he is a heart over hype type player. And I think you see that on the field. And I think that translates on the field. I think that translates through his whole college career at 3 different universities and all the film, you know, that you saw here tonight from, you know, last season in Kentucky. I think you could go back to those other universities and watch the same film from him. And you're going to see the same type of effort, the same type of heart, the same type of skills. Yes. Add that to the Bills offense. Add that to Josh Allen and his arsenal and ability to distribute under Joe Brady, you know, get the ball in and out of his hands like a point guard. And that's where the Bills offense is going to lie this year. Will they have, Dalton Kincaid stepping up? I do think that, you know, he will become a primary receiver tight end in the Bills offense, but all these other ancillary pieces have to support, you know, some of those upper tier guys on the Bills offense and help Josh Allen out. I think Ray Davis, plugging him in, I think he'll fit in just fine from a character standpoint, but also effort and skill set on the field.
I agree. And again, not that raw stats are everything, but just seeing the production, like back-to-back years in the SEC, 2022 at Vanderbilt, 2023 in Kentucky, over 1,000 yards rushing each year. At Vanderbilt, 4.5 yards per attempt. This past year at Kentucky, 5.7 yards per attempt. And then in the past game, 169 receiving yards with Vanderbilt, 324 this past year with Kentucky. And then also in that Kentucky year, 14 touchdowns last year. That's in the SEC. That's against the Georgias and the Floridas, like we showed. And like couple people commented, like, Mississippi State has a good defense. They're running NFL schemes out there with their simulateds and their creepers and the size that they have. Like, you are playing top tier talent. And Kentucky actually had a good year, but no disrespect to Kentucky or Vanderbilt.
Right.
They're not necessarily fighting fire with fire when it comes to talent against the Floridas and, well, maybe not Florida, but the Georgias of the world. So seeing the production that he had at the school that he had in the division that he had against the caliber of opponent he played, and you just pair it all together. Yeah, the back-to-back picks there with him and Van Pran Granger. I'm just excited for what they could both be long-term. And, you know, highlighting Ray Davis in this episode was a very nice way to go. Erik, any final thoughts on Ray Davis before we start to wrap here in a little bit?
No, I'm excited, you know, maybe to even see Davis and Cook on the field at the same time.
Pony personnel, baby.
And flipping some of that, you know, the personnel groupings and throwing it on their head, on the defense on their head, because multiple tight ends, multiple running backs. How are you defending that? And so that is something to keep an eye on going forward as well.
Absolutely. We've spoke about it on the show. I spoke about it a ton last night in Disguised Coverage. Like, on paper, there isn't just this overwhelming presence of guys who can win one-on-one or just go get you a bucket at any time on this Bills roster offensively, but you have a lot of different skill sets and a lot of pieces that put a lot of emphasis on Joe Brady. And if he can push the right buttons and pull the right levers at the right time, there's some fun mismatch creation with this offense in terms of personnel groupings, formations, alignments. I think you see more condensed formations and pairing that with the run, using some of that to beat man coverage because they don't have traditional man coverage beaters with the type of group that they built. There's a lot of fun and potential that not just in Ray Davis, but in this offense. And it'll be fun and exciting to see as we go forward here in the film room, here in this offseason. But that'll do it for us here in this episode of the Cover One Film Room. Hope you folks enjoyed this episode on Bills rookie running back Ray Davis. If you have not already, please, and thank you, drop a like on this video. It goes a sincerely long way towards helping us to track and trend in front of our eyes and ears. So if you're watching live, Please drop a like before you say bye to us. If you're watching post live, that's awesome too. Please drop a like if you have not already. Turn on notifications for the Cover One Film Room playlist here on YouTube. Subscribe to the Cover One channel. We have you covered pretty much every single day of the week with anything and everything Buffalo Bills, varying levels of depth and content you are looking for. If you are listening to this show on one of the podcasting apps or platforms, that's appreciated as well. Please rate and review and subscribe to the Cover One Film Room on those podcasting apps and or platforms. And as always, this was, a grassroots company that was started by Erik here. So grassroots verbal communication, word of mouth is always tremendously appreciated. If you enjoy this, if you enjoy the brand, tell your folks, your family, friends, loved ones about the show, about the channel, about the brand, whether they're Bills fans or football fans, especially with what we do here on this show and the X's and O's we cover. It's Bills focused through a Bills lens, but it goes beyond that and teaching folks about what this game is schematically. So we hope you folks enjoyed this episode. Thank you very much to all the people who tuned in live, the engagement with each other, the engagement with myself and Erik, the kind words that have poured in throughout the episode. We greatly appreciate them. And again, whether you're watching, listening, downloading, live, post live, whatever have you, we greatly appreciate your support and all the forms and fashions that it comes in. But that'll do it for us here in this episode of the Cover One Film Room. I'm Anthony Prohaska. That's Erik Turner. We hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. If you live in Buffalo or Western New York or Central New York, or I think the entire state is absolutely beautiful today with weather. Beautiful. Go enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Do some stuff outside. Have some fun. Kick it back here to the Cover One channel for the Cover One Buffalo podcast with Greg and Aaron tonight, where they'll be looking at running back position for the team and some OTA stuff. And until next week, when we see you on the show, Godspeed. And as always, go Bills.